Hello students, welcome to EasyElimu Learning Simplified. I am your teacher, Mr. Stanley Ombogo. So dear students, we are still looking at an artist of the floating world uh, analysis by Kazuo Ishiguro. And in this session, allow me take you through episode 2 summary. So when I talk about episode 2, I'm talking about the scenes and the events that we have as from April 1949. So remember in our previous session, we looked at, that is the first episode, the summary of the first episode, that is the scenes and events that we have as from October, that is 1948. So talking about April 1949, and in this episode, dear students, we are told that Ono oftenly walks from his house to the Bridge of Hesitation. Remember, there's a bridge called the Bridge of Hesitation in the novel that leads to the Pleasure District. So Ono oftenly walks from his house to this bridge that leads to the Pleasure District to survey the construction going on all around him. So the Bridge of Hesitation is so named because men would sometimes stand there deciding whether to go home to their wives or go out for a night of drinking. So now Ono stands there looking at that is looking at how new apartment blocks are going up in the place where the pleasure district used to be. So all over the city, ruins from the bombing are being cleared away and new buildings are being constructed. So outside Mrs. Kawakami's, that is the bar that Ono and friends used to, relax in the evenings, a concrete road and the foundations for large office buildings are being built. So Ms. Kawakami has received an offer, we are told, to sell her property, and she's considering it, especially since Shintaro no longer comes to the bar, making Ono her only customer. So over the winter, Shintaro told Ono that he was applying for jobs teaching art at high schools. Although Ono has not been Shintaro's teacher for many years, he was surprised that Shintaro had not consulted him about his job applications. So he expected Shintaro to keep him up to date with his job applications. So then a little after New Year, Shintaro, visited Ono's house. So Ono showed him into the reception room where Shintaro, uh, appreciated or thanked Ono for all he has done for him over the years. So he told Ono that his application at the high school uh, was on a good progress, but the committee is not satisfied about a couple points in Shintaro's past. So Shintaro came to ask Ono to write to the committee to confirm something he would, that is, to confirm something he told them, that the two had a disagreement while producing the posters for the China crisis. So Ono says he does not recall this disagreement, and Shintaro responds by saying that he was drunk at an engagement party and rudely told Ono that he disagreed with him about the China crisis posters. So Ono stood up and went to look out onto his garden. So he asked Shintaro if he was trying to disassociate himself from his influence. Shintaro denied this, and Ono said that Shintaro should face the past. Shintaro got credit for the poster campaign at the time and should not lie about it now. So Shintaro again tells Ono that he respects him, but he is in the middle of his career and has different considerations that a retiree like Ono than a retiree like Ono. So Shintaro is ambitious and focused. So without replying, Ono silently watched snow falling in the garden. Shintaro told Ono that he will leave the name and address of the committee and hopes Ono will write. So Ono does not reply, and Shintaro eventually excuses himself and leaves. So looking back on this conversation from the present moment, Ono says that it may seem that he treated Shintaro harshly, but what had been going on in his own life sheds light on why he felt no sympathy for those trying to evade responsibility. So in fact, Shintaro's visit was only a few days after Noriko's Miai, the formal meeting between two families arranging the children's marriages. So Mr. Kyo arranges the Miai for a day in November at the Kasuga Park Hotel. So Ono is unhappy with the choice of location, but gives his agreement when he hears the Saitos like the food there. So Mr. Kyo tells Ono that he should feel free to invite a relative or close friend because the Miai will be weighted towards the groom's side with the Taro Saito's mother, father, and brother all there. So Setsuko is far away and there is no one else to invite. So only Noriko and Ono plan to go to the Miai. The weeks leading up to the Miai are tense ones for Ono and Noriko. Ono does not tell Noriko about all his efforts to make sure things go on smoothly, and she criticizes him for laziness and moping around doing nothing. So later Ono wonders whether Noriko would have had her more confidence if he had shared what he was doing with her. So one afternoon, dear students, we are told that Ono uh, sits on the veranda looking at shrubs he has pruned, sorry. Noriko has just gotten home from work and she tells Ono that he has ruined the bamboo, just like he ruined the azaleas. She says that he meddles because he has too much time on his mind. Ono says that the pruning looks fine, and Noriko says that he must be going blind or suffering from poor taste. Ono says that Noriko never did have much taste, so she and her sister took after their mother while Kenji took after him. He says that Michiko would sometimes even criticize his paintings, but then she would laugh and say she was mistaken. Noriko asks if Ono believes he was always right about his paintings. So Ono says Noriko can reprune the shrubs if she wants to change how they look. Noriko answers by saying she is much too busy to do that because she doesn't sit around all day like her father does. So looking back on this conversation from the present moment, dear students, Ono reflects that if he were to tell Noriko how much he had been doing on her behalf, she would likely be ashamed of her behavior towards him. In fact, earlier that day, he had gone to visit Kuroda. So Ono reports that he had easily found where Kuroda lives. A professor at Uemachi College had told him the address and updated him on Kuroda's career. So his years in prison were strong credentials, so Kuroda was given a post as an art teacher. So Ono says that although it may seem perverse, he is glad to see that Kuroda's career is progressing well, even though they became estranged. So Ono goes to Kuroda's apartment and rings the bell twice. So a young man by the name Enchi answers the door and asks if Ono is a work associate. So hearing that he is, the young man that is named Enchi asks Ono to come into the apartment to wait for Kuroda. So the young man is Kuroda's protege and lives with him. So because he has been thrown out of his own apartment for splashing paint on the tatami, so Ono praises a painting on the wall which he believes to be Kuroda's, but Enchi says it is his own. He says that Kuroda often tells him he must discover his own style. So Ono tells him he has much talent and a style of his own will develop with time. So Enchi thanks him for the encouragement and urges him to wait for Kuroda to come. Enchi again praises Kuroda's generosity to him, that is, and again being able to host or accommodate him. So he tells Ono not to be in a hurry, not to hurry away, because Kuroda will want to thank him. So Ono is surprised at this. Then Enchi says he had assumed that Ono represents the Cordon society. So Ono says that this is not the case. And Enchi later asks Ono his name, and upon hearing it, walks away to look out the window. So after silence, Ono asks if Kuroda will be coming soon, and Enchi responds by saying that Ono should not Ono should not trouble himself by waiting any longer. But Ono is insistent, so he insists on waiting. But Enchi says that he doesn't need to. He will tell Kuroda that Ono visited, and Kuroda may write to Ono. So Ono tells Enchi that he must have been a very young man back when Ono and Kuroda knew one another, and he shouldn't jump to conclusions about the relationship without knowing the full details. So the young man, that is Enchi, says Ono should leave, and that he is shocked that Ono would dare to present himself as a friendly visitor. So with a kind of strange composure, Enchi says that Ono must be the one who doesn't know the details. So Kuroda was beaten in prison and accused of being a traitor. His shoulder was injured and he was denied medical treatment. So Ono gathers himself to leave, repeating to Enchi that he does not yet understand how complicated the world is. So Enchi says to him that everyone knows now who the real traitors are. So again, looking back on this scene from the present moment, dear students, Ono says he did not allow Enchi's words to upset him because um, he totally understood the young boy, but was disturbed that Kuroda might be so hostile to him, given how this could impact Noriko's marriage. So he writes Kuroda a friendly letter saying he would like to see him, but he is disappointed to receive a cold refusal from Kuroda. So although Ono does not tell Noriko about his attempts to reach Kuroda, he imagines that his bad mood after receiving Kuroda's letter transmitted itself to her and made her anxious. So on the day of the Miai, Noriko seems especially anxious. So Ono tries to to lighten her mood by joking about how long she is taking to get ready. Noriko snaps back that he has not even started to get ready, and she can see that he is too proud to try to make a good impression, even though it will determine her future. So he asks her what she means by too proud, but she says no more. So Ono reflects on the contrast between Noriko's anxiety leading up to this Miai and her casual approach to the Miai with the Miyake family the previous year. So remember, Miai is the meeting scheduled between two families for marriage negotiations. So Ono thinks that Noriko must have been quite confident that she would marry Jiro Miyake and been shocked when it fell through. But this does not excuse her rudeness towards him. So Ono describes the Kasuga Park Hotel. It used to be one of the city's best Western style hotels, but it is now decorated to fit the American occupiers' idea of charmingly Japanese hotel. So the evening is not completely clear in Ono's memory because the tension makes him drink more quickly than he usually does. So he has a favorable impression of Taro Saito, his father and mother. Then there is Taro's younger brother by the name Mitsuo, who, however, seems to Ono to be looking at him with a hint of hostility. So Mitsuo resembles Enchi somewhat. Remember, Enchi was the young man Ono met at Kuroda's place. So Ono begins to feel that perhaps the rest of the family also feels hostility towards him. But Mitsuo is the only one young enough to not know how to conceal it. So Ono begins to look to Mitsuo as a barometer of how the evening is going. That is using Mitsuo, who is not able to conceal, who is not able to conceal the hostility that he feels towards him. So he is planning to use him to read the mind of the rest of the family members. So for the first part of the evening, Noriko is very stiff and reserved. Although Noriko is quite bold when around people she knows, she often has some difficulty striking the right tone with strangers. But Ono can see from the way the family treats Mrs. Saito that they are not looking for a demure, old-fashioned wife for Taro. So Dr. Saito is very good at creating a relaxed atmosphere, and we are told that at one point he raises the question of the large demonstrations happening in the city. He says he saw a young man who had been injured but intended to return immediately to the demonstrations, and asks Ono's opinion of this. So Ono thinks the whole table fixes their attention on him, waiting for his response. So he says, it is a shame so many have been injured. So Ms. Saito says that her husband believes the demonstrations are good for society, but she doesn't understand why. Saito then says it is good that people are expressing their views openly. Another thing is that Taro says he thinks democracy is a good thing, but the Japanese are still learning how to handle the responsibility and should not be allowed to run riot. So Dr. Saito laughs that it seems he is an odd man, more liberal than his son. So still on the same scene, Dr. Saito asks Ono whether he sides with Mrs. Saito and Taro in believing his attitude towards demonstrations is too liberal. So Ono is drinking faster than he means to, so he cannot be sure if his impressions are right, but he thinks that the Saitos do not really seem to disagree. So he repeats his earlier answer that it is a shame that people are getting hurt. So Ono is once again struck by how badly Noriko seems to be handling the tension. So Taro attempts to draw her out of her shell, and in awkward silence. That is the attempt by Taro to draw Noriko out of her shell, and in some awkward silence. So Dr. Saito brings up Kuroda, explaining that his younger son, Mitsuo, studies at the Uemachi College. So Ono asks Mitsuo if he knows Kuroda well, and Mitsuo says he has no artistic talent, and so he only knows Kuroda by reputation, meaning that he doesn't, conversate with professors of art. So Taro changes the subject, trying to engage Noriko on the topic of music. Then Mr. Kyo begins to tell a story. So remember, Mr. Kyo is the man representing, that is Ono's family in the marriage negotiations. So Ono interrupts Mr. Kyo, asking Mitsuo if Kuroda has spoken to him about Ono. Mitsuo is confused, saying that he is not well acquainted with the Kuroda. Ono says that Kuroda likely does not have a high opinion of him. He continues that he is aware that some people think his career was a negative influence, and Kuroda is likely one of these people. So Ono again thinks Dr. Saito is watching him carefully, as a teacher watches a pupil. He continues saying that he admits he made many mistakes, and that his influence was partially responsible for the nation's suffering. So Dr. Saito asked if Ono means that he is unhappy with his work. Ono responds and says that he is ready to admit that he made mistakes because at the time he acted in good faith. So Taro tells Ono that he is sure he is being too harsh with himself, and turning to Noriko, he asks if Ono is always so hard on himself. So Noriko, who has been staring at her father in astonishment, replies without thinking. She says that her father is usually not hard on himself at all and sleeps through breakfast. So Taro is happy to have gotten more of a response from Noriko, and from then on, the tone changes. The mail goes from a tilted affair to a successful gathering, and by the end of the evening, it seems clear that the two families get along, and Taro and Noriko like one another. So reflecting on the evening from the present moment, Ono says that it was not easy for him to take the declaration he did about his past, but he decided it was prudent. So he cannot understand the impulse to lie about the past, because there is dignity in admitting to mistakes made in good faith. So he adds that Shintaro would be a happy man if he had the courage to honestly admit to his mistakes. So Shintaro got the job at the school, and perhaps it was because he took Ono's advice and spoke to the committee about his past. So Ono thinks it more likely, however, that Shintaro continued to lie. So Ono now believes that Shintaro has a cunning side of his nature that he had not noticed before. That is, all those years they had been together. So Ono raises the issue of Shintaro's cunning with Mrs. Kawakami, but she disagrees. She sighs sadly and says that it seems Shintaro will not return to the bar. So the construction is continuing outside in the meantime, and Ono is struck by how out of that is Ono is struck by how out of place the bar will soon be. That is with the recent constructions and renovations that are ongoing. So another thing is that Ono encourages Mrs. Kawakami to accept the offer to sell the property. So she says she has been in the bar. That is, Mrs. Kawakami responds to Ono by saying that she has been in the bar for so long and becomes nostalgic. So Ono thinks that it is true that they had all enjoyed the spirit of that time, but perhaps it is better that that world has passed away. So he is tempted to say this to Mrs. Kawakami, but decides it will hurt her feelings to hear that a place in which she invested so much of her life and energy is gone forever, and rightly so. So dear students, that marks the end of episode 2 analysis. That is April 1949. Thank you for watching till the end, and please remember to keep it easy, Elimu. Once again, my name is Mr. Stanley Ombogo. Until next time, bye.